The one thing I haven't talked about yet, and I might make this clip in the beginning here before I get a little ahead of myself, is that you do need to save these because these will not automatically save like a Google. So when you're in here, and might as well go back to my screen to show you, okay? When you are in here, I would save often, okay? So what you need to do, you'll go to File, and you'll go to Save, or you can do Control S. And here's the thing. When you're editing this, it has layers like we were talking about, right? You want these layers to be able to keep working on this. So right now, if you save it as a PNG or a JPEG, which is like kind of normal files for images, it will take all of those layers and squish them together so you no longer can work on them. So this is very, very, very important. You want to save it as a PXZ, okay? So it's a really big file, but it saves all of the layers, and that's kind of a big deal. So it will make you download it, so it will save it to your download folder. And it might take a little bit because this gets to be a big image after a while. So once you have it, if you leave or walk away, you're able to open it up and see where it's at, okay? So it's really important to save these while you're working on them, because I've had so many people that are like, I lost it, I don't know where it went, it's gone. And you just aren't used to saving things because a lot of times computers do it for you nowadays, but this is a program you actually have to save it, okay? So don't forget to do that. All right, folks, if you're to this point, it means you've watched all of the previous video on how to get your image into this Pixlr photo editing software that we have open. So if you have not done that, watch that video. All right, but for those of you ready, here we go. I have my nice McDonald's logo, and we're gonna start making this look a little bit more like pop art. So you can see right now my overall space where the checkerboards are, it's more of a rectangular shape, and that's going to work out for us because what we're going to do, we are going to resize this image even more to be able to fit many of them in here, okay? And what I mean by that is we're going to end up probably fitting closer to 6 or 8 of these. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make this guy a little bit smaller. I'm just dragging from the corner. I am using my move tool or my range tool right now. So that helps me move things around. And I'm gonna find a spot to put it right in the corner. And those little pink bars show up and they pop up and it's like, okay, you're in the corner. So I'm gonna let go. Now, I just kind of scrolled a little bit. It's helpful to have a mouse for this project. So if you haven't gotten one already or are using one, you could probably borrow one from school or chat with me and I could get you one, all right? And my goal here right now is I'm gonna say, can I fit another one directly underneath it? And right now I'm thinking, I don't know. I'll give it a try. Because what we're going to do, instead of copying that image address over and over and over again, what we're going to do, we're actually going to duplicate this layer. We're going to make a copy of it. So right now, if I right click on this layer, you can see over the side there's this part that says layers, and I'm kind of clicking on them over here right now. If you click on the one with your logo, if you right click on it, or you use 2 fingers to tap on your trackpad right there, you'll see there is a name, a blend mode. We don't need to worry about those quite yet, but towards the bottom there are these 5 little icons, and the bottom one next to the trash can, don't click that one, that will delete it, there's a duplicate. So I'm going to hit OK, duplicate, and you'll see, well, hey, wait a minute, there's a layer here, and then like my background one, but I don't see them. Well, that's because they're sitting on top of each other. So if I click one and move it, ta-da, you got it. You got another one. So I'm gonna put that one next to it, and I'm gonna keep copying. At least I'm gonna get 6 of these total. So I'm gonna right click it again, make a copy. I'm gonna move it over, and when we're all done, we'll actually end up cropping this to fit everything. So don't worry if there's a little extra on the side here. All right. So I'm going to make 6 copies because that works for me. Maybe you can fit 8, maybe you don't fit 10, depends on the size. But the goal is to kind of make them look like they're evenly all over the place, all right? So I got to get 2 more copies here. Much quicker than actually using that link over and over again. I'm using my arrows on my keyboard to nudge it and move it around too a little bit. I think that's helpful. Another copy, and here we go. All right, so move my M's all in the same spot. All right. So I'm thinking, okay, that looks pretty good. I got that little extra thing going on. That's okay. Because what I'm going to do now that I have everything where I want it, I'm going to click these little bars over on the left. There are two underneath our arrange tool. It has like those little bars. And you can see this huge box popped up around the whole thing. You're going to want to click and drag it to the very edge of your images. And you're going to click enter. Hiya. And all of the extra stuff goes away. All right. And maybe you're like, ooh, it looks like some of these aren't quite right, or they're looking like they're not perfectly around each other. You can always click on them and move them if you feel like you need to. All right. So from here, I do not want these to move anymore, because if I'm going to start painting eventually, which is this paintbrush tool, this draw tool, if I am painting and I'm not paying attention, I might accidentally move them. We don't want to do that. So now that I have all my M's in the spots I want, I'm going to go left click on any of those layers, okay, and the same things pop up, but this time we're going to click on, instead of the duplicate, if we go straight up to merge visible. So all of those layers are currently visible. You can see them. So if I click on them, poof, look at that. It moves it all into one layer, and now I can no longer move them. They are stuck. They are happy. They're not going to go anywhere. Sweet. All right, from here, we're going to start coloring these in with crazy bright colors. And right now we have a couple that are just like, they're all bright colors, and we could leave one exactly how it is, and that's fine. But we do want to color the other ones. So what we're going to do, I am going to actually remove the color from some of these. Get rid of the color? Why? Because you're going to change it to the color you want. All right. So what you're going to be doing here, there's a couple ways to do this, so I might kind of go back and forth between them and talk about both. But one thing you're going to want to do when you are coloring with a paintbrush tool, you are going to want to add a new layer. Okay, so what I did here is I'm going to click on that plus button, and I'm going to make an empty layer because we're going to color on it and fill it up with a color. So I'm going to do empty. All right, so right now there's nothing on it. Because now if I got my paintbrush tool, which is the draw tool, that little paintbrush over here, if I start drawing on things, oh no, I made a mistake and I didn't want to do that. If I go to my eraser button, it will only erase the paint parts, okay? It's not going to erase your letter M or whatever logo you have. So it's really important to do separate layers when you're coloring these. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. So I'm going to click on that where that sun looking thing is, and I'm going to go, whoa, big brush, just to get rid of that with my eraser, okay? So you're going to want to make new layers for coloring these, all right? However, some of these we might be able to tweak a little bit. So what we're going to do, we're going to grab this magic wand tool, and we are going to select some things, okay? So if I just click on something right now, you see these little dots that pop up and go all the way around your box? That's because you're on the wrong layer, all right? Right now, if you're on your invisible layer, it's going to select everything. However, if I go back to my layer one where I squished everything and I try again, so I'll do Control D on my keyboard to deselect it. If I click on my M now, it will only select the color I'm on, okay? And from there, what you can do, if you click on the paintbrush tool, which are those two circles at the bottom, I'm like, I'm going to change that green because that would be crazy. I love it. So I'm going to click where I want to go, click OK. And then with my paintbrush tool, if I start painting, I'm going to paint in that letter M. Okay. So here's my problem though. Right now, do you see I'm on layer 1? Okay, I forgot to switch to my other layer, because now if I erased it, if I go to my eraser tool, it's going to get rid of like everything. Oh, and you know, mine turned black, and you know why? Because I didn't change my colors to the right one. So if I want to erase it, it's going to go to white. I want to erase it. Oopsie. So it got a little goofed up, right? So what you want to do, also, if you goof up, I've kind of talked about navigate a little bit so you can see what's going on. I talked about our layers a little bit. Now let's look at this history button, okay? If you're like, oh, shucks, I totally goofed up. You can always go back in your history and change things, okay? So I can go all the way to the beginning when I only had 3 letter M's. The problem though is once you go back to that layer, it's going to get rid of everything else. Okay, so go to the point you want, and then when you start doing something new, everything else you did after that goes away. All right, so it'll take a little bit of playing around, but like I said, if I accidentally started coloring on my layer 1, let's go back in time, go to when you selected it, and then change your layer. All right, so now if I change it to lime green, whoop, and I paint over it, I gotta reselect it. Okay, click on that. Okay, so here's where, okay, this is where it's kind of silly too. So if I want to click on the M, I have to make sure I'm on the correct layer, then click on the M. Now I got to go back to layers. A lot of flip-flopping, but at the end, if you make a mistake, it's worth it, so you don't have to worry so much. All right, so I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger just because it'll paint a little bit faster then. And now I can start painting on this letter M. I'm like, ooh, yeah, look at that green. And while I'm on this color green, I'm like, maybe I want to put the green somewhere else on a different letter M. So I'm going to go back to my magic wand. And I'm going to say, maybe I want my green to go onto this shadow part. Okay, or like over this area. Okay, if I click on it with my wand, you'll see, I'm on my layer 8. I got to go back to my McDonald's layer. Okay, so Control D to deselect. I'll click on that. But you're like, oh, wait a second. I want to do the other ones too. So if you want to select more than one area, you click Shift, and then you click on those shadow parts, and it will select all of them. Okay, so it takes a little bit of time, and you might have to do some troubleshooting, or you might have to reselect things a few times, but once you get the hang of it, it's kind of a fun process to do some coloring in and moving all over the place. All right, like I said, you can leave the original colors if you want, but all the other ones should be different colors. All right, so maybe I did a green M, and I did a green shadow. I'm gonna deselect. Oh, you want to see what I did there? I started drawing and I didn't go on the right layer. Better go back to my layer, go to my brush, go back over here. There we go. And it'll show up in that layer image too, which is great. So maybe in my other M, I'm going to go back to my McDonald's, go to my wand. I'm going to have this whole red, the 4-sided shape green. So I'm going to go back to my green layer, and I'm going to get my brush, which is the letter B if you want to go really fast. Maybe I'll do that part green. And you kind of want to put them in like all the colors, or like all the boxes a little bit, maybe not the same spot. So for example, if I go back here, let's click on this one, and let's click on Shift this one. So I'm going to go behind this box. I'm going to click on my brush again, go back to the right layer, and like having a little bit all over the place. It's kind of fun. All right. So when you're done, or like when you get done with one color, you're going to want to make another layer. So you're going to go plus, make it empty so you don't see it. And then maybe you're going to say, oh, maybe I don't have any purple. I'm going to add purple and make it really bright with purple. So then I'll go to, and it's going to take some time. It's going to be some thought, like where do you want things to be colored? What's going to happen here? But at the end, you're going to have some really crazy looking McDonald's. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing for just a little bit. I'm going to keep going on this one because this is a new project I'm doing with everybody. So I'm going to pause right here. I'm going to keep working. And if you want to rewind or pause or keep going, I'm going to put a new clip in this video after this in just a second. But this is the start of it, and I'm going to show you where to pick up in just a little bit. All right, so if you have any questions at this point, you can rewind the video, maybe rewatch it again, maybe send me a message. But for now, I'm going to let you go to work, and I'm going to be putting another clip of how to kind of finish this off when you're all done. All right. All right, folks, so I have a good stopping point. I like the different pops of color going on. It's definitely a little bit more funky than just the original primary color one that we got. It's like, oh wow, it's definitely kind of popping. So here's one other option that might work for you, or might be something you're thinking about, to kind of finish this off to make it look even more poppin'. And that is the fact that the entire background behind all of these letter M's and those like layered shapes is that there's a plain white background. And though that might be good to help the color pop more. If you want it to really drive it to the next level, we're gonna have to get a little more funky with it. And we're gonna put different color backgrounds behind each McDonald's logo or whatever logo you have, all right? So, for example, here's one thing we're gonna do to make a nice even box around it. Because right now, if I started painting, it'd be like, like that's not gonna work. It's gonna be kind of wild. So, we'll come back here. So, let's get rid of that white background, all right? So, right now, this whole time, our layer 1 with all of our logos have been locked. And that's why we couldn't move them around when we were painting. So, what I'm gonna do is click on that lock, and the lock goes away. I'm going to double click and it goes away. And what I can do now from here, if I click my wand tool and I click on the white area, it all gets selected. And if I click backspace, it goes away. Yay, that checkerboard came back. And you'll see I have some spots I still need to delete that weren't quite selected. So I'll click on them and click backspace, and I'll click on them and go backspace. So that way all the things that you want to have a different color will show up. All right, so now if I have my new layer here, I can actually put it underneath all of my information, underneath all of those McDonald layers. So if I go to my marquee tool, that letter M, if I click and drag, which you can actually drag from outside of your image too if you want to have better control over where it goes, I'm going to say, oh, that looks like about a good spot for that. So now if I hit my brush tool, and I start coloring it in, now everything underneath will be good to go. Okay, I'm gonna make my brush a little bit bigger so it goes a little bit faster. Hiya! Color that in. And then I'm gonna select, I'm gonna get another layer. You're gonna have a lot of layers by the time you're done with this, and that's totally okay. So I got another layer. I'm gonna hit my Control D, deselect to make the boxes go away, and I'm gonna hit the M button again to make the marquee tool. I'm going to get this, like you can see these little crosshairs here. I'm going to line it up so I'm right next to the other one. And I'm going to do another box. And maybe this time, if I do my eyedropper tool, maybe I want to do this one, the McDonald's blue color. I can do that, click on that. And then I'll have to go back to my brush, the letter B. I can paint, and I got my next color. Sweet. Make another layer, make it empty. And this just keeps going until you have this all complete, all right? And you'll notice as I'm going, whoopsie, if you didn't quite meet them up together, or there's a weird crack, you can always go back to that layer and you can move it with that V tool, okay? So if I, whoopsie, gotta do Control deselect, I can go move things around. Whoa, but I don't want that, so I'll undo it. So the goal is when you're all done, you'll have all these really bright, colorful boxes that have the same colors but different backgrounds so that it pops even more. All right. This one, maybe I'm going to do my McDonald's gold. I'm going to do my bright yellow that I just borrowed for this one brush. Okay, yeah. Woo. That one really pops. Make another layer. That's empty. Deselect, and I'm going to keep filling these in. I might actually speed up here a little bit. All right, so I used a whole bunch of colors. I am at 17 layers right now, and it gets a little crazy. So that's all part about using photo editing though programs and doing coloring. You want to add a lot of layers, so in case you make a mistake, it doesn't ruin everything that you've done. Okay, so what I want to do right now, that was a lot. So the goal here is to have at least like 4, 6, 8 copies of your logo, and they all are different colors when they're finished. You can leave one original one so I can kind of see what it looked like. Like you can see I had my original McDonald's one in the corner there. However, I'm literally looking that you're able to use the magic wand tool to select areas and color them in. Is that you do need to save these because these will not automatically save like a Google. So when you're in here, and might as well go back to my screen to show you, okay? When you are in here, I would save often, okay? So what you need to do, you'll go to File, and you'll go to Save, or you can do Control S. And here's the thing. when you're editing this, it has layers like we were talking about, right? You want these layers to be able to keep working on this. So right now, if you save it as a PNG or a JPEG, which is like kind of normal files for images, it will take all of those layers and squish them together, so you no longer can work on them. So this is very, very, very important. You want to save it as a PXZ, okay? So it's a really big file, but it saves all of the layers, and that's kind of a big deal. So it will make you download it, so it will save it to your download folder. And it might take a little bit because this gets to be a big image after a while. So once you have it, if you leave or walk away, you're able to open it up and see where it's at, okay? So it's really important to save these while you're working on them, because I've had so many people that are like, I lost it, I don't know where it went, it's gone. And you just aren't used to saving things, because a lot of times computers do it for you nowadays, but this is a program you actually have to save it, okay? So don't forget to do that. But anyways, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, honestly, I think rewinding the video and watching it again is really helpful, because you've heard it once and then you're like, okay, I've heard these words, I need to practice doing it. So then you might want to rewind and do it again now that you kind of are more familiar with those tools or got a refresher on some of those tools, right? So if you have questions, comments, let me know. I'm looking forward to seeing what logo you pick and all the crazy colors you came up with. All right, happy creating.